Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Patreon-sponsored review time again, and this one's a bit different. Somewhat similar to when I did that review of some issues of the Heroic Green Goblin, in that we're kinda jumping all over the place. I normally don't approve of this kind of review because I much prefer analyzing a particular story arc, or at least a connected set of issues, especially because we're doing issues 1, 12, 18, and a one-shot. That stuff's spread out at least over a year and a half. A lot can happen in that span of time. The big two have already shifted so much over to multi-issue storylines instead of done-in-ones, or at least individual issues that have their own beginning, middle, and end, but contribute to a larger narrative. But indie stuff like today's comic? Well, they know they have a limited time to tell their story, so that's even more likely for us to miss out on important plot details. And because of that, while I'm not reviewing every issue in between, I feel inclined to read every issue in between to make sure I'm not completely lost. And I'm trying to actually stay on schedule, so hoping to not have a ton of additional work or a longer video before I'm ready for it. Still, I tentatively approved this one because it's less about the overall narrative and more a focus on a particular character. Poyo.
My not ears are burning.
Yeah, no dude, it's about a character who's a chicken. It's pronounced the same way, but spelled differently, with a Y instead of two L's like you.
Gotcha. Wait a second. 2 L's, chicken? Is my name the Spanish word for chicken?
Well, yeah.
Oh my god. I just realized. I actually look like a chicken. You created a literal robot chicken. Like the show. How have I not figured this out until now?
I mean, you're only vaguely chicken-shaped, even in your original body.
I'm having an existential crisis here, and we will talk more about this after the review.
Anywho, we're talking about the indie comic Chew, and I have to warn you guys, this one might be a little gross. The details of it are explained in the first issue, which gives us the setup to this world and our main character, but summed up, this story involves food, eating, and a bit of gore to it. Yeah, that includes some cannibalism. Oh goody, we're in the Ultimate Universe, everything's grounded now. I, of course, won't show anything too gratuitous because I like having my videos monetized, but you should be aware that I have to describe a few things that happen in the comic. Needless to say, the patron was curious if Moarte was going to be covering this book on Longbox of the Damned before asking if I'd be willing to do it. As if I'd let him have anything. Let's dig into Chew number 1, 12, 18, and the Secret Agent Poyo one-shot.
Atop the fourth wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man, punch, sporadically a grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara. A universe in flux, Linkara. This comic sucks, Linkara.
We've got 4 issues to look at, so no examinations of the covers. We open with a prologue, where a chef is cooking chicken soup. However, in the process of chopping some onions, the chef cuts himself, lets the blood drip onto the onions, and tosses them into the soup.
Health and fucking safety!
We truly open with our introduction to Detective Tony Chew. Tony Chew is almost always hungry, and almost never eats. It just goes right to his hips is all. Actually, as the narration explains, it's because Tony is cybopathic. It's a form of telepathy wherein if he eats something, he basically can see the entire history of it. Images in his head of where the food was made, what chemicals were used on it, and in the case of some foods, that can be kind of traumatic when you take a bite out of a burger and you see a butcher slaughtering the cow. On the plus side, he does see the amazing cow heroes then take vengeance out on the butcher. Naturally, this can be rather uncomfortable for him, but there is one food that his power doesn't work on. Beets. Consequently, Tony Chew eats a lot of beets. Consequently, Tony Chew has severe kidney stones and his urine is pink. He's buying foods with his partner, John Colby, who's a bit of a racist prick who insults the convenience store clerk, who in turn spits in the guy's coffee. Why do you antagonize that kid? He spits in your coffee, you know. Every night. Yeah, and if I ever catch the little bastard doing it, I'm gonna ram my nightstick so far up his— Vice cops don't carry nightsticks. Although they will still drink coffee that's been spit in. Ew! The two are on a stakeout and don't particularly like each other, but they're seeking out people carrying contraband. A very specific kind of contraband. Chicken meat. Yes, as we soon learn, in this story's universe, there was some kind of bird flu that infected chicken and other bird meats that ended up killing millions of people. As a result, poultry and the like was outlawed as a food meat, and thus possessing chicken meat is a federal offense. And this basically means that this world is my version of hell. As my friends and colleagues have continually teased, I friggin' love chicken tenders, but it's more than that. Grilled, pan-seared, fried, baked, I love chicken. I'm pretty sure chicken is my favorite food, and if I was in this world, I'd probably have starved to death long ago. Or I could just eat more ham and beef instead, but more likely the former. They detect a guy who has a ton of it on his person, but Colby says they can't bring him in, since it's actually Chu's brother, a former TV chef who had a meltdown on air when he started complaining about the substitute meat he had to put in place of chicken that was utter garbage, and then proceeded to claim that the virus was a hoax made up by the government. This comic came out in 2009, lest you think that the current crop of idiots who scream that viruses are a government conspiracy are a recent development. Then again, this is also a fictional story, so chances are there actually is a conspiracy at work. Anyway, Chu is a dedicated by-the-book officer, so he's willing to bring his brother in, to Colby's objection, until they spot D-Bear, a known gangster known for both the illegal chicken trade and, you know, murder, which is kind of a bigger thing. However, before they can go to try to bust him, they're stopped by Agent Mason Savoy of the FDA. He says they can't bust him because D-Bear is actually an informant for the FDA. They're letting him get away with his crimes as long as he reports on other stuff, and unfortunately, the feds supersede local authority on stuff like this. Although the FDA isn't exactly squeaky clean on this either. In the spirit of cooperation, you can go into yon eatery and enjoy an enticing, albeit extra-legal regalement of the finest poultry the American black market has to offer, all at the expense of the United States government and with my complete and sincere blessing and compliments. The password is Wishbone. Okay, fine, but my Yelp review is going to be very subdued. Chu really does not want to do this, but Colby badgers him into it, telling him to make sure he does order something chickeny, or they'll think he's a cop or an asshole. And damn it, that's Colby's job! And indeed, Colby orders a crap ton of fried chicken while Chu just orders chicken soup. A detail that apparently really annoys the waiter. Well, if you didn't want to serve chicken soup at your illegal restaurant, why is it available at all? Colby reminds Chu that nobody really wants this poultry ban, just the government, and that it's enabled the FDA to become powerful and fascistic. Chu prefers the letter of the law, and even if it wasn't, D-Bear is guilty of murder, and they shouldn't be letting him get away with it. Still, food is served, but as soon as Chu takes a sip of his soup, well, as you can see, it ain't pleasant. How's the soup taste? Oh god, I think they put grape jelly and mustard in this! Chu's abilities indicate that the sous chef of the restaurant, Tracy Cobb, is a serial killer who's murdered over a dozen women, some of whom end up in the food. And then there's the worst part of it.
Not an ounce of seasoning.
Colby is aware of Chu's powers, so he believes it. They need to move fast because he's planning on leaving soon. Fortunately, Colby is not so much of an asshole that he's gonna let a serial killer get away, especially since Cobb isn't on the FDA's protected list here. They storm the kitchen, guns drawn, informing them that they don't give a crap about the restaurant, but they want Tracy Cobb. Unfortunately, Mr. Cobb is quite good with a cleaver and tosses one into Colby's head while he flees. Colby, dying, tells Chu to go after him. He confronts Cobb in an alley, demanding to know the names of all his victims. He has a few from the psychic experience, but the others are a bit of a jumble. Instead, to prevent himself from being taken in, Cobb elects to slice his own throat. Damn it! You rather die than go to jail? Fine. But I'm still getting those names. And he takes a bite out of him. Multiple, in fact. You see? Cautionary tale here. You outlaw chicken, and the police resort to cannibalism. At the police station, while the captain is happy that they have the names of the victims so the families can have closure, Colby is in surgery and not expected to survive, D-Bear is now in hiding and not talking to the feds, and Chew himself was found munching on a serial killer's face by a pair of beat cops. So this isn't looking good for him. It seems the captain's not aware of his little ability, and neither is Internal Affairs, who now have some questions for him. The captain says he's willing to go to bat for him to keep him out of prison or an insane asylum, but his days as a cop are over. Until the FDA agent, Savoy, arrives. He is also pretty pleased about a serial killer getting taken down, and as such, he offers Chew a job at the FDA working for him, ending the first issue. Quick recap of the intervening issues. Savoy has the same power as Chew, but it turns out he murdered a guy to try to discover the true cause of the bird flu. Chew starts dating a food critic and investigates a strange alien plant that literally tastes like chicken, and Colby returns to become Chew's new partner at the FDA, and he has become a cyborg. This comic might actually be kind of awesome. Part of that whole alien fruit thing involved Chew going to an island nation where there was a murder investigation revolving around a famous cockfighting rooster named Poyo. And Poyo is the real reason we're here. With issue 12, we open on Agent Chew wearing a blonde wig and fake mustache, aiming a gun at someone flanked by 2 bodyguards. The pages got shuffled out of sequence this issue. This is actually page 18. Well, then they should have fixed it for the digital copy I got. The guy proclaims that he gave Chew a chance to walk out of here in one piece, revealing that he has a wall of bulletproof glass ready to protect him, and the bodyguards are ready to unload their own guns at him. We cut over to what was supposed to be the first page, the contrast of an announcer talking about some kind of fight with a guy getting beaten to death in an alleyway. While the announcer seems to be describing the beatdown, particularly as the crowd soon is shocked and horrified by what transpires, we soon see that they're actually watching a cockfighting ring, with Poyo standing over the bloody, decapitated remains of other chickens. And honestly, I kind of agree with the spectators. Look at that side over there. I'm pretty sure that means he dragged the body across that wall to get a blood streak like that. This is the dark reboot of Chicken Boo that nobody wanted. We cut over to Chew on a date with his girlfriend, the aforementioned food critic Amelia Mintz. Amelia also has a quasi-psychic power. In this case, she's a Sabo Scrivener. The idea is that she's able to write about food so accurately and vividly that people can experience the same taste in their mouths when reading it. This led to a lot of backlash against her when she was describing food in the negative, likening bad dining experiences to rotting meat and feces. But for Chew, this woman is divine because it allows him to experience taste without the psychic baggage and trauma that comes with normal eating for him. They're discussing the events of a previous storyline, how the alien plants that taste like chicken seem to have been wiped out, though unbeknownst to Chew, Mintz manages to recover one and is growing it in her window garden. The date is interrupted by an emergency call from the FDA, where they've just gotten word about the guy who was beaten down. He was the former police chief of the island and had met Chew. He's also the one who stole Poyo and got him away. Appleby, Chew's boss, gets annoyed at Chew for interrupting the briefing with what he knows about the guy, but then has to stop himself and step outside. Yeah, this is what I mean by details like this being a bit of a problem when I need to jump around to different issues. Appleby absolutely hates Chew for reasons that are unclear, and was piling on him since day one at the FDA, but then Colby started sleeping with Appleby, and as a result, he's trying to not be as much of an ass about it. Context is important when I'm recapping this stuff, and leaping from issue 1 to issue 12, and, well, stuff happens in all that time. Colby blames Chew for how Appleby is so clingy to him, but their argument is interrupted as Appleby has brought in D-Bear to work with them. The FDA wants to put an end to the cockfighting rings in the area, so they're using D-Bear to set up a fake venue and lure the ringleaders in, then swoop in and arrest everyone. In particular, a guy named Butcher Jones. And after snatching Poyo, he's got incentive to stage more fights, because of all the money it will bring, right? Then, as soon as we get Poyo, we buy out his contract and start having him do legit fighting and wrestling matches. It's win-win! Butcher Jones is a paranoid sort, loves making money, but always has special precautions everywhere with him, including a kind of food psychic he brings along with him to suss out poisoning attempts. However, when they finally meet him, things don't go to plan. It seems Butcher is pissed at D-Bear for a bad drug deal that went down a while ago, and while he's happy to let Chew go, he wants the money he brought to finance the venue as well as kill D-Bear. That's when Chew pulls the gun. This was page 17. Page 19 comes next. We thought this would be an amusing gag, even though this series has had some issues with a teaser page of what's to come before this one, so this is just kind of pointless. Instead of trying to shoot the guards or through the bulletproof glass, Chew elects to shoot the lock on Poyo's cage. Yeah, he's been here the whole time. Kudos for having the detail on the opening bit, but not drawing attention to it. With the lock off, Poyo leaps out of the cage and quickly slaughters Butcher and his bodyguards, slicing them with its claws. Though, given how they look in a few shots, maybe he actually has talons? Anyway, point is, the guards accidentally shoot each other in the chaos, and Poyo stands victorious over Butcher's body. Okay, I mentioned the amazing cow heroes earlier, and I think we may have found their arch nemesis. Later, Chew figures out that this was a bit of a setup on D-Bear's part to get rid of Butcher, since he had a price on D-Bear's head. D-Bear admits to it, but says that he had full confidence in Chew to pull this off because he was able to take down Savoy. A week later, Amelia prepares another food review for Chew, but they're interrupted by his phone again. She worries that this will be a relationship where his job takes priority over them, and reminds him that it's a job that he hates doing, with one terrible assignment after another, for a boss that still hates him, and has to eat the worst things imaginable in an act that messes with his head every time he does it. And shockingly, what elevates this to being one of the best comics I've ever had to do on this show, he agrees with her and decides not to take the call and resumes their date. Tony, if you were a real person, I'd give you money just because you're not a moron, and I have to see so many morons in comics. That being said, it turns out to be Colby, who's calling to inform him that they've found Savoy and an FDA task force are surrounding his house. Not that that matters to us, because now we're skipping ahead to issue 18. It's like I'm teasing you all with the actual plot of the series. So after the next issue features a new artificial chicken substitute made by splicing chicken DNA with frogs that Chew says is frickin' chicken.
'Cause that's some good f***ing chicken.
We have a lot of done-in-ones that contribute to an overall larger picture. That Chew was originally engaged to a woman named Min, who went insane and cut off one of her own toes so that Chew would eat it. I probably would have gone with a Nintendo Switch for an anniversary present, but maybe I'm just not as romantic as her. The two actually had a child together, Olive, who aids our heroes when they investigate a bullied kid who tried to hold hostages with a bomb that he made out of various foods. The bigger issue, though, is that on Thanksgiving, alien writing appears in the sky. No one can translate it, but due to the potential this has to be a world-ending threat, the FDA shifts their focus away from policing poultry-related issues to try to find out what they can. They try to locate a former FDA agent, Daniel Migdalo, who also has food-related powers, but he's a Vorsophic, meaning he gains intelligence the more he eats. Unfortunately, they find that this skinny twig of a man has ballooned into Jabba the Hutt and is speaking only in mathematical equations, and he attacks them on sight. He dies after accidentally leaping out a window, and while Chew could eat some of his blood to try to figure out what happened, knowledge and skill are sometimes passed over in the food consumption, and as a result, it could possibly give him the same intelligence, as well as the same madness, so it's decided to avoid that for the time being. But let's not completely disregard giving into the madness just yet. We open to a flashback 18 months ago where Savoy and his then-partner Valenzano are examining a dead FDA agent. Given the state of the body, Savoy refuses to eat anything on him lest he be infected with whatever killed the guy, but fortunately Migdalo comes in and has the answers already. The guy was an undercover FDA agent looking into a North Korean bioweapons program, a chemical agent that would mimic the avian flu. It was at least 18 months off from being ready for a large-scale effective act of terrorism. As such, he advised Savoy and Valenzano to just ignore it. Even if the guy does successfully synthesize a form ready for large-scale issues, a lot can happen in 18 months. By the time he works it out, maybe it'll be somebody else's problem.
I'm the government, I'm the government, I'm the reason nothing works.
Annoyed by not only Chew, but now Colby for standing him up on Thanksgiving, Appleby has sent the two on increasingly dangerous missions that could get them killed. This is partly your fault, Colby. Sleeping with the boss is already a bad idea from either side of things, but if you're gonna do it, you've got to at least try to follow through on the relationship, lest they send you out to deal with a scout troop that's actually an apocalyptic death cult. The latest that the two are sent on is a joint mission with the US Department of Agriculture, which for some reason now just has women working in it. A lot of Chew is satirical, with some rather wince-inducing edgy jokes along the way, but for the life of me, I do not know what the Department of Agriculture is staffed entirely by women thing is supposed to be a joke on. In any event, much like how the FDA has been given greater power with the poultry ban, so has the USDA, which is now dealing with the North Korean general and his bioweapon. He's close to being ready to use it, and the alien writing in the sky has apparently pushed him over the edge to do so. Their mission is to take out the guy and his heavily guarded lab, and it's very likely to be a suicide mission. The women are annoyed by the presence of our heroes, though the director admits the two have a failsafe device. If the mission goes south, they have been given something that will unleash hell and make sure nobody survives. And naturally, they are not told what this device actually is. Because, the last thing you want on a dangerous mission is all the information at hand. And of course, it's always a good idea to be disrespectful to the people who are going to be holding the doomsday weapon. The agents are all dropped in at night, the idea being that it would provide the element of surprise, but the giant alien letters in the sky illuminate the area, and thus many of the agents are shot on the way down. Chew is ordered to press the button, but instead of it being a nuke or anything like that, it's Poyo, who is released from a box. And it's here where we finally have a backstory for this chicken. That he was exposed to near-lethal amounts of radiation as an egg as part of an experiment to create super soldiers, and was trained by Tibetan monks in Kung Fu and given enhancements by aliens during a rash of farm animal abductions. And all of that is bullcrap. It's just a joke. As the panel says, Poyo is just a friggin' awesome chicken who can kick ass. And you know what? In this book, I totally buy that. Hell, even the North Korean general manages to unload some bullets into Poyo, and he just gets right back up and tears out the dude's still beating heart before collapsing. And Chew, of course, is nothing but impressed and in awe of it. And frankly, so should everyone. No wonder a nation was willing to go to civil war over it. Nothing but respect for that bird. Also love how most of this issue was action, so that was the shortest recap for a single issue I could possibly give. And that brings us to our final comic, the Special Agent Poyo one-shot. Now, we have only had a taste of Poyo this whole time, pun not intended, and I think the patron was right about letting us have this setup. If I had just reviewed the one-shot, the power of this comic, the absurdly wonderful nature of Poyo would not have been as effective. We have been viewing Poyo as the characters do, bystanders, brief glimpses of his magnificence. And it all leads up to this. After the battle in North Korea, Poyo was brought back to the United States for surgery and cybernetic enhancement. The president is worried about the investment of so much time, energy, and money into just a rooster, but the director of the USDA vouches for Poyo and the need for him. Anyway, we cut to hell. Is it weird that I say that a lot on this show? The devil is informed of a new arrival that has managed to resist all efforts to round it up and be tortured. Hellhounds and infernal demons have all been ripped to shreds. Naturally, it is Poyo. Of course.
Of course!
Hear me, O forces of darkness! Descend, bring forth all the fiery darkness, the power of hell, and the untold tortured souls of the damned, and smite our enemy! They are rage. Brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and cluck until it is done. I may not be so off with my comparison to the Doomslayer here. The doctors were able to resuscitate Poyo, the USDA director describing him as the purest manifestation of rage and terror and hate the world has ever known. And when we cut back to hell, Poyo does indeed stand victorious over the legions of the damned, even the devil himself at the bottom of the pile. Guys, I know you're out there. Give unto me a Doom Eternal mod where I play as an all-powerful rooster. With Poyo's revival, his soul heads towards the light to leave hell. Look, my lord, he's retreating! Not retreating, merely seeking fertile ground for conquest. Hey, remember when Jonathan Joestar told Dio, guess who survived his time in hell? He was talking about Poyo. And thus is born Secret Agent Poyo in Freeholdshire-upon-Marsh, England. I'm sure I mispronounced that, and this is going to be another Gloucestershire is Gloucestershire thing. Sheep begin falling from the sky, killing several residents and leaving the dead animals everywhere. Much like how the Food and Drug Administration in this universe became the top law enforcement agency in the US, the UK's equivalent, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, aka DEFRA, has had the same thing happen to them. Agent Barnes of DEFRA asks the chief who exactly is Poyo, and we get a montage of all the amazing things he's done. Fending off the irradiated zookeeper's revenge. Now I'm radioactive! That's good for revenge! Fending off Genghis Condor and his mutant Mongol Tyranno riders. I am very curious why we're not reading that story right now. And teamed up with a bunch of Image Comics heroes, which includes Chapel for some reason. Anyway, they already know who's responsible for the sheep thing. Dr. Regenbogen, a climatologist who's an expert in Rana Poliva, a bizarre meteorological phenomenon wherein frogs fall from the sky, something that he was able to actually recreate. Oh sure, most mad scientists will invent a weather machine, but how many will invent one that will literally rain cats and dogs? And indeed, he was able to adjust his science to make all sorts of farm animals descend on any target of his choosing. Naturally, he went into supervillainy for this, demanding 6 billion British pounds in an offshore account, or he'll replicate what happened to that village to the entire world. Poyo and Barnes locate his compound 15 minutes before the deadline, but Barnes is captured by guards. Poyo tries the direct approach, but Regenbogen has a teleport array that sends Poyo up into the sky with the other animals. He spots a hen, and the two have love at first sight, until a stray lightning bolt zaps the poor hen. Just as well, Poyo, you're married to the job. Dr. Regenbogen orders Barnes to call his superiors and tell them to release the money. Unless, of course, your Yank Super Chicken can fly! And Poyo's cybernetic wing does indeed have jets on it, which he uses to fly down and straight through Regenbogen's head. Sometime later, we cut over to Colby working at the USDA. Yeah, long story there. In the intermediate issues, Colby got transferred over to the Department of Agriculture, where he is now sleeping with the director there as well. And he got partnered up with Poyo. And it seems Poyo has been a bit moody since he got back from England, most likely because of the death of the hen. He says he spotted Poyo near level 6, which, as the director points out, is where a bunch of frog-chicken hybrids were kept from a previous issue. They worry that Poyo might kill them, or something else, and so our comic ends with the frickin' all happily bouncing and going up to Poyo, who winks at the reader. What's happening is either something incredibly wholesome, or the weirdest orgy in history is about to start. Anyway, these comics are overall good. Chew is an interesting and shockingly compelling read, despite the fact that it is very unsubtle in its satire. It's a bit on the edgelord side of things, especially in Colby's case as he drops some racist and homophobic slurs in other issues, and I suspect the audience is supposed to be okay with that because he's bisexual and friends with many people of different races. It's severely downplayed in later issues and could probably just be chalked up to the book trying to find the tone it's going for, and it eventually settles at an okay level, teetering just on the edge of bad taste. Again, no pun intended. Still, what helps is that most of the characters are incredibly likable. Chew may be a stick in the mud, but we understand where he's coming from in a lot of places, particularly when he can be so miserable because of his abilities. The artwork is very cartoony and a bit on the ugly side, but that's kind of the point. Again, it's there to be like that to match the chaotic, ridiculous nature of this comics universe. A universe that features a deadly rooster that once fought off the forces of hell without even a shotgun at his disposal. What's funny is that while this episode is called Poyo Character Focus, there really isn't much to Poyo's character. Comparing him to the Doom Marine is kind of apt. He's just incredibly pissed off at evil things, and will show his contempt for that evil by ripping them to shreds. He has moments of wholesome, well, humanity is probably not the correct word for a chicken, but rather compassion and love that gets taken away from him tragically, but in turn fuels his unyielding rage and awesomeness. Chew is definitely not for everyone, but I think it is an enjoyable read for those who would get into something as over-the-top as this. If you want to see over-the-top done wrong, though, come back next time as we return to Youngblood Strike File.
I'm sitting on my couch reviewing comics.
just saying, of all the animals you could have built a robot around, why a chicken?
I like chickens.
You like eating chickens. Am I just a meal to you?
I mean, I haven't tasted fried robots.
I'm beginning to suspect this is how Mecha came about.
Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon or purchase a t-shirt via Teespring or Shark Robot. Thanks for watching!